the answers, no good answers. I could find you, I could find
From the Sporting News Studios, this is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Matt Litevsky.
I got all the answers, all the answers. I could find you, I could find all the answers. If you let me get it close and study you.
Big week, Billy. Big week.
Always.
This is a big week. This really is a big week, though. I said it like in week 3, and it really wasn't that big of a week, but now these are big weeks.
Yeah, you said that pretty much the same sentence verbatim last week, though, so.
Well, that's true. Well, they keep getting bigger.
They keep getting bigger, yeah.
Yeah, they do.
They're aging. Time is moving.
That's right. Sporting News Fantasy intern Billy Ayan over there, and we are going to break this down in what is probably a must-win. I think it's a must-win for almost everyone because you're either playing for playoff seeding, you're playing to get in the playoffs, or you're trying to avoid last place.
Yeah.
And not whatever, if there's a punishment, if there's any sort of penalty, if it's a keeper league or something like that.
Does our league have a punishment?
No.
Ah, shit.
I know. There's we kicked around some possibilities one year, but it's like we work in like a sports office that's highly competitive as it is, and your punishment is like, having to live with that for a year, I feel like.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to break it all down. We're going to go over the top pickups, highest trending players. We're going to go over the good and bad matchups. We always start by looking at things we got wrong last week, and this is something that a lot of people got wrong. Brian Hill being sort of advocated as a must-play sleeper, taking over for an injured Devontae Freeman. Great matchup on paper against the Panthers. And look, he had a touchdown. That was called back. Your boy, Allison there, Kadri, vultured a touchdown for him, sort of out of nowhere. So he was close to coming through for fantasy owners, but very disappointing day running the ball. And I don't know what we take of that. He's probably going to start again this week in a much tougher matchup. I mean, right. Tampa's one of the best run defenses in the NFL. I mean, can you even consider starting him this week?
I don't think so. I mean, you can probably use him as a flex depending on your team. He's probably going to get, the 15-plus touches that he got last week. So he's not unusable, and he does get involved a little bit in the passing game, which could help him depending on sort of how the game goes. But you don't feel, 2 yards to carry last week, you don't feel like, oh, boy, he's going to do better against Tampa.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so, but that's probably how it goes, right? The week everyone's excited, he does nothing. Exactly. Now this week, no one wants him. We could probably throw in, we were wrong about not knowing Bo Scarbrough was going to get signed off the practice squad a day before and get a touchdown.
Yeah, Bo knows, man. Only Bo knows.
We were all wrong about that one. We'll talk more about him in a little bit. So another one, I'll give us a little credit. We talked about Ted Ginn as a sleeper. Sure enough, he went out there, scored a touchdown, but we were wrong about avoiding Devontae Parker. We were very worried about Tre'Davious White and the Bills' defense. And I made that choice personally in our league. And even though I streamed a Ginn touchdown, I cost myself like almost 9 points because Devontae Parker had like 7 for 135. There was garbage time, which I think definitely helped him. But with the Dolphins, there could always be garbage time. Yeah, they had been better. I actually thought that was going to be a close game in Miami, and they had been better, and Buffalo hasn't been great. But it wasn't. It was a blowout. So I think the lesson here, there's kind of 2 things I want to take from this one. Is Devontae Parker, matchup proof's too strong of a word, but is he almost like a must-play? Whether it might be a must-play wide receiver 3, which sounds weird, right? But he gets so many targets, and he seems to have a good floor every week.
Yeah, he certainly doesn't seem like a guy that most people that have him are sitting. Obviously it depends on your team, and maybe you drafted 3 good receivers that have stayed healthy, and so Parker you don't quite need. But
because he was a pickup for a lot of people around midseason. So, but to do it against Tre'Davious White, it's pretty impressive, and that sort of leads into Courtland Sutton this week, who will face the Bills and Tre'Davious White. Courtland Sutton's really established himself as kind of a premier wide receiver. Like, we're getting to that point, considering the quarterbacks he's played with this year. I don't think anyone's going to sit him, especially after last week.
No.
But, should you be worried at all now after you saw this from Devontae Parker?
Yeah, I think you can worry a little bit. White's larger sample size. He's still shut down a bunch of good players. So I don't think Sutton goes out and has as big a week as Parker, especially with Brandon Allen throwing the ball. But
Allen's been okay. He's probably been better than we give him credit for.
He probably has.
Yeah. But what about Courtland Sutton throwing the ball?
That's true. When you factor in an extra point or so from that, they ran the same reverse pass play twice in a row.
And he had to eat the second time and just kind of tried to run.
He got like 8 yards rushing now.
Yeah.
That's big. He had a well-rounded game.
It really was.
So I guess if Cortland Sutton's going to be triple threat this week, lock him in your lineups.
Yeah, you got to at that point. Devontae Parker, on paper, it's another tough-ish matchup. Like the Browns have been rating high against wide receivers all year, even though you watch them and they don't seem like anything special in the defensive backfield. The two, I think, biggest pass rushers on their team not playing this week.
Right, that's a big hit.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think he's just fine again this week.
Yeah, play him.
Actual good play. All right, one other thing we were wrong about. We weren't alone. I mean, we still said start Zach Ertz just kind of by default because it's tight end.
Yep.
But we definitely doubted him. And sure enough, Dallas Goedert got the touchdown. But Zach Ertz came through with a real nice game against the Patriots. And it was never really garbage time in that game at all. Always a one-score game. So he's sort of back to establish himself. Again, I don't think anyone was ever really sitting him just because of who he is and the position. But I think it's weird because Goddard keeps scoring and Ertz doesn't. It's still disappointing in a way, but he's still, gosh, when you look at the other tight ends out there, I mean, I know you had to deal with Gerald Everett, a lot of other people, the O.J. Howard fiasco that's really been his entire season. Obviously, the injuries. This week, we have buys to Kelsey and Rudolph. So, yeah, I think, and Hunter Henry as well. I don't know. This is just sort of a weird week, and what do you do with? I mean, Ertz is just Ertz, right?
Yeah, I know. We spent a lot of time talking about him this year for a guy that you've probably never really even been able to consider sitting.
Yeah, I think last week was the week if you were going to sit him, maybe.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but he's
Zach Ertz. He's in your lineup.
He's Zach Ertz the way it is. All right, let's get to the highest trending players of the week. We like to pick out sort of a random search engine. It might be defunct, like this one is. Old Wacko Search. I don't know if you ever used Wacko Search, but it was a search engine designed to specifically give you erroneous results, give you what you're looking for.
So are we about to give erroneous results on the podcast?
I was thinking about that. So we should just talk about C.J. Ham, right? And talk about guys who no fantasy owners searching for.
Yeah.
I guess it'd be like offensive linemen, actually, if we really want to take it to its logical extreme. Yes. But we are going to go with guys who are actually, well, I guess you could argue what we did was we typed in what's the best kind of cheese to see. Oh,
and it told
fantasy
us
owners want to know about Marlon Mack. Maybe that's our little angle for this. But anyway, Wacko Search doesn't exist anymore to my knowledge. Don't check it out because you can't. Don't even know how you'd get there. You can't Wacko Search, right? Because it would send you to Google.
It's wackosearch.com, but when I type
how about that
it just spins.
We went to wackosearch.com to look up Wacko Search, and it sent us to Google. And then we got real results.
All right, let's get into the players,
That's our bit. All right, Marlon Mack broke his hand. Very strange to me. I hear broken hand, carry hand. I think, this guy's out for a month. And they're like, well, he probably won't play this week. But maybe, and I'm like, what? Is it even possible he can come back in 2 weeks? Anyway, all we know is he's definitely out this week. That's what matters the most. And a very confusing situation because Jonathan Williams comes in, replaces him last week, goes for over 100 yards, looked great. But now we got Jordan Wilkins, who had been the handcuff all year, hadn't played in 2 games, didn't even practice last week because of an ankle injury. Oh, he's practicing Tuesday. Is he coming back? This just feels like a nightmare for fantasy owners. At least it's a Thursday game. That's the one good thing, so you can just make your decision early and adjust. But, I feel like Wilkins is trending toward playing now since he practiced Tuesday or limited.
Yep.
But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if Wilkins plays, I don't know how you have any idea which of Wilkins or Williams is the main guy. If one of them's the main guy, obviously Nyheim Hines is going to get catches still. It feels like there's not even a way to predict it, let alone feel confident about what you're predicting. So, if everybody's active there besides Mac, I don't know if you can play any of them besides maybe Hines in a PPR.
Yeah, it's not a great matchup on paper. We kind of know Hines' role won't change. Frank Reich even said that. I have to think it's like because they both looked good at times this year. Like Wilkins has had his moments before he got hurt, and certainly Williams looked great last week. It feels like Williams should get more carries.
Well, yeah, you're thinking Wilkins coming off an injury, shorter. I mean, not short week for him, I guess, because he's been out.
Right.
But
I don't know either, but it's just a mess. But I do feel like a lot of fantasy owners are going to try to play one. They'll probably, if they are both active, are going to play Williams still.
Right.
I don't know how much. I mean, Wilkins barely even got picked up this week. His ownership is just at 7% in Yahoo. So people apparently just are like, hey, Williams, he's the guy. He had 100 yards last week, but this is a mess. And
if they happen to hold Wilkins out, we feel pretty good about Williams.
yeah, at that point, I mean, I just think you have to look at him as like a 15 carry guy. We know the Colts like to run, but he could still easily disappoint. He could still do nothing. But
Good old Brian Hill game.
Yeah, I mean, but you at least feel a little more comfortable. Like, okay, well, he'll get his touches. That's all I can ask for.
Right.
So another mess of a backfield potentially is the Steelers' backfield. James Conner re-injured his shoulder last Thursday, and I don't know. I guess I'd be surprised if he played, but who knows at this point. There hasn't, like, every report is just like, I don't know. Like, Mike Tomlin's been like that. It's usually not a good sign. And that's going to open up the backfield. Obviously, we go, well, Jalen Samuels. But you look at the past couple games when Connor's been out, and they have given carries to someone else. Benny Hill a couple weeks ago, and I think Samuels was still hurt that game. And then Trey Edmonds one game, and then all of a sudden Tony Brooks-James shows up. Like, Samuels dominated carries that game, week 10, I believe it was.
Yeah.
But he wasn't good. It's 14 carries, 29
he hasn't been
yards.
good on his rushing.
So I think if Connor's out, whoever's the number 2 could have value because they're playing the Bengals this week, 4th most fantasy points allowed per game to running backs. But now we're into this same Wilkins-Williams thing. Is it going to be Benny Snell back? I was going to say Benny Hill. I think like the music start playing yakety sax. Or is it going to be Trey Edmonds, who was good that game when he finally got carries?
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of had one big run that inflated everything. But what do you do here, assuming Connor's out again?
You play Samuels in PPR.
Sure. And probably even in standard.
In standard, I think you can play him too. He'll get 15 touches probably. And I think if Benny Snell's active, you can consider playing him as a flex. And I think if he's out, you can consider playing Edmonds. I do think Snell would take take the role over Edmonds if they're both playing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And Snell was good in that game when he actually got run.
He runs strong.
It's a real tough one because you have that good of a matchup, and you just never know what the Steelers are going to do. And it sounds like Juju is going to be out, and I think there's a good chance. Juju's the next guy on this list. A concussion and a knee injury, a guy who hasn't been doing anything anyway. I don't really know why. You'd want to force him in your lineup. And statistically, Cincinnati's good against wide receivers. It's sort of a weird skewed stat because quarterbacks tear them up, but. I don't know. It just seems like a situation where are they getting the offense from? And it's probably going to be the running backs. We know they like to check down every chance they get. So this is a tough one. But I kind of think, if Connor's out, at least 2 running backs are playable, and then it's going to depend on who those running backs are. I already kind of talked about Juju. The only thing there I want to add is Deontay Johnson also hurt. James Washington coming on as of late, the old college connection. If Juju, let's just say Juju's out, I mean, James Washington, does he have value this week?
Yeah, he's a flex guy, boomer bust kind of guy. He's he's like the only guy that they sort of consistently will throw down the field to.
Right.
Which means maybe the good old Oklahoma State connection hits once and maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
You don't feel great about him, but especially if both of those guys are out.
Yeah.
It almost seems like he has to get 8 or more targets.
So it's just like a
which
backs
means
and tight ends game,
he backs his way into 4 for 70.
Yeah, because it's not a good defense, even though the statistics say it limits wide receivers.
Right.
So that's always sort of an interesting thing how that can work. But it does feel like this could finally. I feel like Vance McDonald's had good matchups a lot of times here and doesn't do anything.
That guy's been a disappointment.
Yeah, I mean that whole offense has, honestly, and it's largely because of the quarterback. So both Scarbrough, we mentioned him, came out of nowhere. Obviously, good college career. Everyone knew him at Alabama and bounced around already this year on practice squads and various teams. But he winds up with the Lions, gets promoted a day before the game, gets 14 carries, dominates the first drive, looked good. One of those looked the part type things. Didn't do much after that drive, but he did score. He had 55 yards for the game, 14 carries again. You never know with the Lions, but I kind of think this is the guy.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to say otherwise. I mean, like you said, you can't really know with the Lions with how they've handled things before. I mean, it was weird once Ty Johnson was cleared and active that he wasn't still the guy. Now, he hadn't been good, so it makes sense to try somebody else. And I think Scarbrough did look good enough that they'll run him out there at least again next week.
And I think, too, this kind of is a Matt Patricia thing where I do think he wants a bigger sort of power back to be the main back, and we know they can't block. So I mean, it's tough to count on a Lions running back to do much of anything. I mean, even Kerryon Johnson wasn't doing that much when he was playing. He was getting some touchdowns, but that's it. But we saw them just be like, Trey Carson, you're our guy. You know, he's 230 pounder, even if he's not that tall. It just feels like Ty Johnson, J.D. McKissick, these guys are receiving backs, you know, and it just feels like they want a guy like Bo Scarborough or Trey Carson to be the early down, 12 plus carry a game back. So I think it's going to continue this week. Great matchup against Washington. I think he's in play.
Yeah, I agree.
And, should have been, if not the number one waiver claim, at least number two, I think, this week, unless Derrius Guice was available in your league. But this is going to be this guy's going to be starting for fantasy teams and fantasy playoffs. Is going to be hilarious.
Yeah, we're going to look back on this in like 3 or 4 years and be like, man, I want a title with Bo Scarborough.
This is really their last good, favorable matchup for running backs. If you look at the next, Chicago, which is okay, but not.
Bo likes
great.
Thanksgiving though. He's a big turkey. He seems like a big turkey guy. So,
but the fantasy playoffs for them: Minnesota, Tampa, Denver.
Don't
not
feel great about that.
Yeah, so this could kind of be get what you can out of Bo Scarborough, and then whatever. I guess you don't drop him, but you might as well. Last guy, there's a bunch. I mean, there's so many big injuries that I just sort of picked one. I picked George Kittle. People seem to still, because he's a tight end, people are still very interested. And if he's coming back, and because he has a really good matchup this week against the Packers, I think top 5 fantasy points allowed to tight ends.
That's correct. I think they're 5th.
If he's out again, Ross Dwelly is still in play. 2 touchdowns last week. Very much in play.
I can't figure out why nobody's picking that guy up. Like,
he has a handcuff, right?
Well,
you should have had him before last week.
But even just like tight end stinks so much that like I would have imagined that somebody in every league would have started him last week. But his ownership
last week was a
but so like his ownership now is like under 25%. It's like like what are we doing? Like he might still start this week. He's got another good matchup. He just caught 2 touchdowns.
Right.
He's in an offense that likes the tight end. Like I feel like the story of George Kittle's injury is that nobody believes in Ross Dwelly, which like I know a lot of you people out there, maybe your teams all stink if you have bad tight ends at this point, but man, I mean, Ross Dwelly's a good play any week that George Kittle's out, I think, and
for sure.
And we don't really know. It is a Sunday night game too, so if you have Kittle and Dwelly's unowned in your league, you have to have Dwelly.
Yeah, because I'd be surprised if he's not questionable, put it that way.
Right.
Even if it's like trending toward playing and he's probably going to play, it's like you go into that Sunday night game and you just don't know for sure.
Right.
It's a bad feeling. And, this week, who are you picking up? Like I guess Jimmy Graham might be available. You can pick up like a Hayden Hurst for the Ravens. Tyler Higbee for the Rams. Like you're in bad shape.
No, yeah. Go get Ross Dwelly.
Yeah, I mean, just make sure. And by the way, if you're playing someone with George Kittle, you go pick up Ross Dwelly. You block that move.
Yep.
Don't let him do it.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't do much last week aside from the 2 touchdowns, 14 yards, but nonetheless.
Yeah, and especially after this week. This is the last week with buys, right?
Yes.
So we're looking at, you sort of know what your lineup might be shaping up for the next few weeks. You don't necessarily need, I don't know, if guys aren't on bye this week, you don't necessarily need a second quarterback or a second defense, depending on how your team shakes out. So using that spot on Dwelly might be more.
You should be planning ahead with multiple defenses.
Oh, I agree with that, but you got to.
You know me, I'm always going to cape up for multiple defenses.
We all know you, Matt. But
this is I tell you what, my season's already down the toilet with injuries and various things and late buys. If I didn't have the Pittsburgh D and could count on them for the next. I mean, probably I'm out after next week, but let's just assume I still made the playoffs and I can still count on them. Like, I'd have to waste that second roster spot on another defense. It would just be catastrophic. That allows me to have Bilal Powell on my team because I have a strange conviction that Le'Veon Bell is going to get hurt.
He did say today that if the NFL tries to drug test him again, he's not going to do it.
Oh,
which is an easy way to get suspended.
He is so close to just not playing. I don't know why he's being resistant and playing. That's unlike him.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but anyway, it's so stupid. But I don't know why.
But anyways, use your roster spots in a smart way.
Handcuff, and that includes tight ends.
And it includes screwing your opponent.
Yes, of course, always. All right, let's get to the good bad matchups for the week. Last week with buys, like you said, Arizona, Kansas City, the Chargers, and the Vikings all on bye. This week, a tough one too. Like I feel like in the past, the last week with buys has only had 2 teams, and maybe it's just been random too. Whatever. Even if they're good teams, you're like, oh, only 2. I can live with that. This week, it's too late in the season to have this many important guys on bye.
Right.
Patrick Mahomes, come on, man.
One of my leagues I'm playing the Mahomes team this week, and I'm like, let's go.
I know, yeah. Too many important guys. Travis Kelce, etc., Hunter Henry. So let's get to the guys who are playing, though. Good, bad matchups. Good and bad matchups. Good for quarterback. I put this group of, we'll call them crap bags, together at once just to see, are any of these guys worth playing? And that's whoever starts for the Bears, which I honestly don't know who it's going to be, but they're playing the Giants. Throw in Mason Rudolph at the Bengals, Dwayne Haskins versus Detroit, and then throw in Jeff Driscoll, at Washington. Sorry, are any of those guys, in your opinion, worth playing?
I like Driscoll. I think the legs give him a floor. I mean, we talk about this.
37 yards at least in each of the first two.
Right,
games.
5 for 37 the first one, 8 for 51 with a rushing touchdown in the second one. He's the kind of guy, like, if you can rush for 40 yards on top of your 200 passing yards,
right,
not turn it over and get a couple total touchdowns there, you're looking at a good fantasy day.
Right. So my thing,
I don't think.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say Washington doesn't really scare me.
Right. Statistically, they're actually not that bad, but we saw last week 4 touchdowns allowed to Darnold. They're not good. No. They had some weird weeks in there. There was that big rainstorm game that held down
that helped them
Garoppolo, etc. My only thing with Driscoll, he's not a good thrower. Like, he hasn't been good.
Yeah.
And so, he's went into Chicago, his first start, a better defense in Washington, and did okay, but he wasn't very good. And I think a road start is going to be more like that. I'm not super high on him, but because of we'll get to the bad matchup quarterbacks, I can see why people would want to start him. And like you said, the floor with the rushing yards. I mean, we always give guys credit, like Josh Allen even.
Right.
He's got a difficult matchup this week too.
I mean that first week against the Bears when it was like, he had 17 fantasy points.
Right. It was, you could live with it.
Right. Like you'll.
And again,
obviously,
4 quarterbacks who might be starters in Murray, Cousins, Rivers, and Mahomes. So you're going to need them. All right, a couple other guys: Baker Mayfield against the Dolphins, Jacoby Brissett on Thursday night against the Texans, and Sam Darnold against the Raiders. Big game last week. I mean, Mayfield 3 touchdowns last week. He really didn't look that good, but he got the touchdowns. He's not turning it over, at least. He hasn't turned it over, I think, the past couple games, which is big. Brissett, maybe that depends on who's back, who's out. Great matchup. He tore up the Texans last time they played, 4 touchdowns, over 300 yards. I like all those guys. I have all those guys in our top 12. Those 3 guys, I should say. It's tough to trust, I think, Mayfield and even Darnold for that matter, because they can just crap the bed on, like that. But those matchups are great.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually going to say that I feel like Brissett's the toughest one for me to trust. He had that hot start to the season, which sort of sticks in your head, and he's pretty consistent. He hasn't been bad, but he sort of regressed to being a little more boring.
Game manager.
And so he probably does depend a lot on who's active. Like, if you're missing a couple running backs and your top receiver and Ebron's questionable, and if he's out there with like Zach Pascal and Jack Doyle and Jonathan Williams, like, yuck, to be honest.
No, I get that for sure.
But in our league, I'm playing Mayfield over Josh Allen, who we've got in our bad matchup section, and I feel okay about it. I think you look at in general, when we do this, you look at the quarterbacks with the good matchups, and we feel better about them, adding an extra touchdown compared to those guys in the bad matchups, maybe. And, and like you look at the Browns against Miami, I guess, could Nick Chubb score 3 touchdowns? Sure. Yeah. But they should their offense should be able to move the ball. They should put up points. And it's the same thing with Darnold. When they play bad teams and their offense sort of is able to click, it looks pretty good.
Right. Yeah. And Oakland was pretty good against the run. They've gradually kind of been coming back to the pack against the run, so they're not great at that. But I just don't think the Jets are good enough to run consistently.
No.
Whether it's the line, whether it's Bell having lost a step, whatever it is. And they have receivers.
And Ryan Griffin. We'll
talk about him. But yeah, so here, good quarterbacks in the bad matchups. Tom Brady against Dallas, Dak Prescott against New England, Aaron Rodgers at San Francisco, Josh Allen against Denver, and Jared Goff, who I just can't even imagine his owners.
I would not want to touch Goff.
So here's the interesting thing about him, I'll say. Getting Cooks back, probably. Getting Woods back. I do think that makes a big difference. But yeah, 0 touchdowns in 3 of the last 5 games, including each of the last 2. It's just tough to watch him and watch that offense and have any expectations. And he's playing a defense that's gotten a lot better as the year's gone on. Revenge game for Marcus Peters.
Yeah,
the kind of guy where revenge game matters.
Yep.
So I just don't think you can play him.
I agree.
But I'm not like terrified of him. You know, they play Monday night, so he'd be like a showdown guy. Otherwise, I kind of like him as a DFS tournament flyer if he was on the main slate.
Right, that's true. His price would be a little depressed.
Yeah, exactly. And like ownership would be like, ugh, who wants him?
Who wants
You can totally see Cooks getting a long touchdown, etc. But so throw him out. Prescott's probably, to me, the biggest guy here. He's been so good this year. Really padded his stats against bad defenses, though. To be fair, 2 games ago at Minnesota, tore him up. Now, you could argue New England, same thing, padded their stats against bad defenses or bad offenses. But they're the fewest fantasy points allowed to the position. Prescott can get yards with, points with his legs. Where is he at specifically in comparison to Mayfield, to Brissett, to Darnold?
I don't feel good about Dak. I probably would put Mayfield and Darnold ahead of him and not Brissett, but I mean, you like Brissett a little better.
Yeah.
I think they're all in the same ballpark, though. It just feels like Dallas, like I was saying, like probably won't get the touchdowns that sort of make Dak's day.
Right.
Carson Wentz and sort of an injured Eagles offense isn't as good as Dallas, but they're in the right direction, and New England handled them.
Right.
Don't feel great about Dak.
Yeah. No, I agree. Not a fan this week, especially with the Amari Cooper banged up.
Yeah.
But it does seem like, well, they're not going to be able to run either, so I don't.
But they will, do it, and then, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not great.
No, I agree. Yeah, so
it's also in New England. What if it snows?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Well, I just assume it's in the Northeast in late November.
True.
It's going to
be a nor'easter.
I mean, it's not as bad as if it was in Buffalo, because then you just assume
they're just as permanently snowing Buffalo.
Blizzard at this time of year in Buffalo. Brady, to me, almost isn't a consider. I mean, another guy, Goff's taken a lot of heat for his performances. Brady, I mean,
he's been kind of bad.
He's had 1 multi-touchdown game in the last 4, and that was just 2 touchdowns. He's not doing much.
Well, I mean, I think he's sort of fallen to where we thought he was going to be before the season.
Yeah.
Right? We were sort of like, he's outside the starting tier, comfortably,
right.
He's fine. He's fine as a backup. And then he came out and he started the season pretty well. Was throwing a bunch of touchdowns. He's even got new weapons now, and you're feeling good about it. But yeah, that offense isn't designed at this point for him to take shots and throw for 400 yards or anything like that.
I don't think he can.
No, I don't think so either. So then you face a decent defense and sort of a tricky matchup, and you can go a lot of other ways.
I think you can look at it and say, well, I get that they're 4th or fewest fantasy points, or maybe not quite that low, but they're like bottom 10 to quarterbacks. The Cowboys are, and then you're like, well, you still have 3 touchdowns to Jeff Driscoll. Like, they don't look that good.
Yeah.
But I just think it's I don't know. Like, when you just throwing 6-yard outs to Julian Edelman and dump offs to James White.
Doesn't feel like there's upside there.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy, though, he could QB sneak 1, throw 2 short ones, and come away, and you'll be like, pretty good game. But I ain't betting. But another situation where I'm like, can they really run? I don't know. So that could just be like a, I don't know, like a 16 to 13 game.
Right, it does feel like one of those games.
Yeah, and just kind of suck. Aaron Rodgers, ranked him 12th. Don't really like it. Real tough matchup against San Francisco. They're again, bottom 5 quarterback, fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. He hasn't been great either. He really hasn't. You'd like to think the Devontae Adams healthier will help. This is a quasi-revenge game. He's from the area. He was pissed they didn't pick him first overall.
Yeah, but when you can pick Alex Smith, you got to do it.
Every time. Played over Patrick Mahomes.
That was like the first NFL draft that I was super aware of. Because it was the year before. Was Eli or 2 years before?
Eli was 2000. Yeah, I think 3. No, 4.
4, I think.
Yeah, so the year before.
Yeah, I wasn't really tuned into that one, but the Rodgers Smith one, I was sitting there and I had just been reading all the stuff. I was all ready. I'm ready for the NFL draft. I'm like 9 years old. Like, let's go. Yeah. And then Aaron Rodgers, this guy that everybody was all over, he's just sitting in the room back there. And I'm like, why is nobody taking Aaron Rodgers? And I had never heard of Aaron Rodgers. I'm a 9-year-old, right?
Yeah, you weren't watching Cal games.
But
growing up in Massachusetts.
So that's anyways.
Or New York, sorry.
Yes.
I hear you. Yeah, no, that's the way I felt when I was a kid, because all I cared about really was Barry Sanders and his stats. And the Lions never took an offensive lineman in the first round, and I was like, what? Why are they taking an offensive lineman? I didn't know who. I didn't know whatever. I was just always mad. I was like, Robert Porcher. It was pronounced Porsche, but I didn't know that. And I was like, why are you taking this guy? He doesn't block for Barry. Anyway, yeah, so that's a weird one. I'm okay with Aaron Rodgers, though, this week. Again, it's just the choices. I still have him ranked behind Mayfield, Darnold, and Brissett. but I still have him in the top 12. Like I have him ahead of Driscoll and maybe some of a guy like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't take too much of a chance for somebody over Rodgers.
Yeah, and I have him ahead of Dak and Brady. I mean, that might really be the choice. We have two bad quarterbacks to choose from.
Yeah.
I just think he's better, I guess.
He's one of those guys that you view him even in a bad matchup as a guy that's not going to screw it up. That's kind of what Goff feels like too, except he's not as good as Rodgers.
Right.
But where you're like, okay, if I have to play him, we'll be fine. He's not going to throw 4 interceptions. There's a chance there's a good game there.
Right.
So I think you feel fine with Rodgers. But I agree with you, probably Mayfield and Darnold and even Brissett right at or a little above him.
Right. And Josh Allen, too, real tough matchup. Third fewest fantasy points Denver allows to quarterbacks, but this is another guy I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt with his legs, and maybe I should be doing the same with Prescott, but I just feel Allen uses his legs more. Like it's a bigger built-in part of that offense. So I have him just outside the starting tier as well, but I don't know. I don't want to start him. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, he's another guy you feel fine about starting. It's
yeah, I wouldn't feel great, but you're just kind of
right. You're like, yeah. I mean, if you've had Josh Allen in your starting lineup a lot of weeks here, you might just stick with him.
Yeah, it's a tough week, though. It's a real tough week for that, and I do think people will dip down and play Driscoll. I don't think you're going to see any Haskins, Rudolph, those guys, just because they're just not that good.
No, and
good matchups.
What's even But good matchups and a good game for them in those matchups is like throwing 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
It's like what do you do?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Running backs. We got the Redskins guys, Guice and Adrian Peterson, if he still counts, against the Lions. Latavius Murray we're going to throw on here against the Panthers. Should be a good matchup. They still split carries. The Steelers guys, whoever they are, against Cincinnati. We got 49ers guys. I think Coleman is locked in, but is it Breida? Is it going to be Mostert? If Breida, whichever one is the backup, do you start them against Green Bay? And Bo, we already talked about Bo Scarbrough against Washington. So I guess looking at the Redskins, you start both, you start either. I think most people will say if I'm starting one, I'm going to start Guice.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, 9-7 Peterson carries to Guice last week.
Yeah.
But
it's a blowout.
You figure it goes a little bit the other direction, but maybe it's 9-7 Guice. It might not be 13-5 or something. I mean, who knows? Guice a little more explosive, maybe a little more likely to get a pass or two his way. So, Guice is probably the preferred for me. But I could see starting Peterson. That run defense is really bad.
Yeah, it's really bad. But either way, I think flex at most. You really can't count on these guys for much.
Yeah, I certainly don't think you can be super confident just because of the split and because Washington's offense really isn't that good.
Yeah, that's the big thing. But we assume Guice will gradually get more touches, but maybe he won't. We don't know.
Right,
what
they might be careful with him, yeah.
And if it's a closer game, who knows? So that's a tough one. Latavius Murray, I wouldn't really think twice about. I'd start him in a flex. I think he's perfectly fine for that role. Feels like, they still split. Kamara's there. He's been used a ton in the passing game, but feels like every other time I look up at a Saints game, Latavius Murray's in.
Yeah, he's only got one game that Kamara's played that he's got double-digit runs. So, I don't feel as confident about him as you. I could see.
I just like that matchup a lot.
Right. Assuming they're in control of the game, he'll get his 8 to 10 carries.
Yeah.
And if they're in control of the game, maybe that means he can score. But, I don't love Murray this week.
Right. Understandable. The Steelers guys, we already talked about them. The 49ers secondary, look, Tevin Coleman hasn't been doing much either. But
that's true.
49ers secondary guy, Green Bay, really bad against the run. Top 5 in fantasy points allowed to backs. And it was a real disappointing game last week for Mostert, filling in for Breida. He still got 9 touches, I think. He's still involved. I always said, I said it when we were watching it, that Jeff Wilson Jr. touchdown at the very end could have just as easily been Mostert, just as easily been Coleman. And it just wasn't. I don't know why he was in there that play, but it's just the way it went. But I feel okay. This is an offense that always has used 2 backs, no matter what the situation, no matter who the backs are. So I think he's going to play. I think he's going to get 10-plus touches against Green Bay. I think that gives him value. We know he's explosive.
Yeah, him and Breida are sort of the same thing, I think.
Yeah.
And whoever's the number 2 is a flex kind of guy with a little bit of upside and a little bit of risk.
Yeah.
Here's one for you.
Yeah.
Raheem Mostert last year, he played against the Packers. Ran 12 times for 87 yards.
That was the Monday night game.
Yep, a lot of
Alfred
things.
Morris.
A lot of things have changed now, but if you're looking at small sample size, running
yeah.
back versus defense, Raheem Mostert has it.
Yeah, that's for sure. And we already talked about Bo Scarbrough. Let's get to the bad matchups. Brian Hill against Tampa, who we already talked about. Jamal Williams, the other side of that, the Packers-49ers game against the Niners. Because I think Aaron Jones is a must-start at this point. Devin Singletary against Denver. They've really shaped up against the run after a slow start to the year. I mean, they have 200 yards to Leonard Fournette, and they've been way better against the run. Yeah, and the Eagles backs, whoever they may be, against Seattle, who's also not a lights-out defense, pretty good against the run, though. Jamal Williams, at this point, it feels like he's sort of faded. He's always around. He can always have that touchdown, especially on a catch. I don't know. What do you think about him this week against San Francisco?
He gains a little bit in PPR. He sort of falls right around where AP is for me, where I'm like, if I must, like,
yeah,
if you are hit kind of hard by the bye weeks, like he'll get some touches and be involved and against a good defense though. So
yeah,
not crazy about him, but he is usable if you need to.
Yeah, I hear you. Now Singletary's a weird one against Denver. It feels like, hey, it's his backfield. Everyone kind of likes him. I don't know. Do you start him?
I'm starting him, and I feel fine about it. I don't think that run defense is anything amazing. I mean, I know the numbers make him look okay, but you're looking at probably 15 touches plus in a game that Buffalo at the very least will be in.
And I don't think Josh Allen can throw much, so they got to get it from somewhere.
Right, you got to think they'll be trying to get Singletary going.
Yeah, I would agree.
From the outset.
I think he's still in play. The Eagles guys, let's just assume Jordan Howard's back. He'd be the guy to start. I don't think you can start Miles Sanders with Jordan Howard back, even in PPR. I mean, he has more PPR value, but even that, it's tough because he's never been a big catch guy. He just makes big catches.
Right.
Jordan Howard, you start him?
Yeah, if he's playing, it's fine.
Yeah.
If he's not playing, I think you start Sanders. I think you're starting one Eagles guy. No matter what there.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, wide receiver. Good matchup, the Bears. We'll even include Allen Robinson in this since he's done really poorly lately, but I think he is a starter. Josh Gordon, which could depend on Tyler Lockett's health, but against Philly. Zach Pascal, very disappointing the past couple weeks in a great matchup with Houston. And the Jets receivers, I think Jamison Crowder is a must-start against Oakland. Those are kind of the primary really good start guys matchup-wise. The Bears, basically it comes down to Robinson and Taylor Gabriel. I think most people are going to start Robinson. But Taylor Gabriel then, who's really had a lot of catches, gotten a lot of snaps lately, can you play him against the Giants?
I think you can in a PPR league. I think I like him as a wide receiver 3 in a PPR. I mean, he's coming off 14 targets last week. Now, obviously, Robinson was getting hounded over there. So that's skewed a little bit, but...
Yeah, because Anthony Miller had a ton of
he had 11 too. I mean, Ramsey was shutting down Robinson, so that makes sense. But Gabriel, he's had at least 3 catches in each of the last 4 weeks. He kind of reminds me of Hunter Renfrow,
right?
Where you're going to get sort of a built-in floor of production. They sometimes try gadget stuff for him. I feel fine about him in a PPR. In a standard, I mean, like he could be your flex and you wouldn't hate it. I don't think.
Right.
Good matchup.
So Gordon, let's assume Lockett does play. Can you consider him?
I don't think so. There's just not enough evidence. I mean, most of his playing time before the Seahawks bye and that in his Seahawks debut came after Lockett got hurt.
Right.
I think both his catches came after Lockett got hurt. We just don't have evidence that automatically after the bye week he's going to play like 2/3 of the plays.
Right.
I don't think so. If Lockett's out, I think you can give him a shot.
Yeah.
He's definitely feels at least like he's got more upside than somebody like Gabriel to use in your flex spot. So but if Lockett plays, I don't know.
Yeah, and then Zach Pascal. I mean, 2 straight nothing weeks. He has a big catch on the very first drive of the game every week, and then just does nothing the rest of the way. And it's a fantastic matchup. This might depend on if T.Y. Hilton plays or someone else. I think if Hilton plays, Pascal's out for sure.
Yeah, that's definite.
But if he's the number 1 receiver, I'm putting that in air quotes, which I don't even know if he is, really, even if Hilton's out. Is he in play?
Man, I mean, I've liked Pascal as the guy with Hilton out for the last bunch of weeks. He's done nothing. I mean, he's getting the targets.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, he had a pass interference in the end zone last game.
I mean, so you can use him, and it's fine. You know who he had his best game of the season against
It was
was Houston.
Yeah, and Brissett had his best game too.
But yeah, I mean, if Hilton's out, I think you can use him and assume that the volume will be enough that he has an okay day.
Right. So the Jets, like I said, Jameson Crowder, 3 straight good games, touchdowns. Regression's coming, but Oakland, man, they're bad against receivers. And you got Demaryius Thomas, who's getting a lot of targets. I think he's actually more targeted than Crowder over the past 2 or 3 games. And then you have Robbie Anderson, who got a touchdown, who's known as the big play guy. Break those 2 down.
Thomas and Anderson?
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, Thomas sort of seems like he's not that exciting, and yeah, he's getting the targets, but 4 for 44 last week. I feel like that's kind of what I'd expect this week. Anderson did find the end zone again last week. He hadn't been too familiar with it. But you're sort of taking more of a shot with Anderson, but I feel like in a flex spot, that makes more sense. I mean, most teams probably don't have Thomas and Anderson.
Right.
But
well, yeah, I'd hope not.
And obviously, Anderson hasn't been that good. So maybe that means he's due, or maybe that means he doesn't have the same role. But but I could see him beating Oakland deep.
And plus, this is going to be a Ryan Griffin game anyway.
They're all Ryan Griffin games.
They have been lately, kind of. Yeah. Anyway, bad matchups. The Cowboys, I'll put all those guys on because really the way Randall Cobb's come on, he has to at least be a consideration in fantasy leagues. Excuse me. And Patriots, which Julian Edelman, you're starting him. We'd never say sit him, but the other guys, Mohamed Sanu, everyone got real excited about. And then he kind of came back to earth. And then Philip Dorsett, he's dinged up. Who knows what's going to happen? The Giants guys, and we really have 3 guys there. If Shepard's back, I know he hasn't cleared the protocol yet, which is he's practicing. He had cleared the protocol. Now he's back in it. I don't know what's going on with him. Then we got Hollywood Brown, who's been very hit or miss this year, which isn't a surprise to me. He's a rookie receiver on a team that likes to run and throw to tight ends, but he's getting the Jalen Ramsey treatment. And then we have Deebo Samuel, who's really come on as of late and against Green Bay. Let's start with the Cowboys. I honestly think even Amari Cooper's sittable this week, given the injury, given Stephon Gilmore. You had the stat. He played barely over 50% of snaps last week.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely hurting, it seems like. And Gilmore is, probably the best cornerback, at least at locking down his guy in the league. So I would feel totally fine sitting Cooper, although obviously it's tough to do if you have him.
People were attributing last week's sort of no-show to, Darius Slay was on him. Well, Stephon Gilmore is going to be on him, and he's been better.
Right.
So I really do think you can sit him this week. I don't think people will who have him. It'd be very tough.
Right.
I get it. But then you have Michael Gallup, and you can argue that, okay, well, Gilmore's on Cooper. That'll actually be good for Gallup, and he's been good lately. I don't feel great about playing him either.
No, I don't feel good about any of these guys, Cop, either. It's like, and I usually like Gallup, but this is just a match. If you sort of buy into the fact that the Patriots are a really good defense, that were helped by good matchups, but in general are good defense, I don't think I really want to play any of those guys.
Right. No, I agree. Cobb, too. Patriots, Sanu, if Dorsett's out, I think that helps him, but at the same time,
it just feels like they just design a game plan for a game, and unless somebody can come up with a good reason why they're going to force feed Mohamed Sanu against Dallas like they force fed him 2 weeks ago, you don't feel great about it. I was all in on him because they never took him off the field 2 weeks ago, and then he played like half the time last week because they just wanted to run the heck out of the ball and control the game, and I don't know. They're just unpredictable. I don't like that.
I think an argument might be, well, the Lions' number 2 receiver caught 2 touchdowns last week, but the Patriots throw it all out the window. It's just, they're completely different.
Right.
Giants guys, Tate, Darius Slayton, who was a pre-buy, a little waiver wire find, people might have already forgotten about. Shepard, if he comes back, really affects, it affects everyone if Shepard comes back. Ingram probably out. It's just a weird team right now, a lot in flux. They're playing the Bears, who, for all sort of their warts, has still been good against the pass almost every week. So I think you still play Tate. I don't feel great about Slayton or Shepard this week at all.
Yeah, I agree with that. It does feel like the Bears defense still is the kind of group that'll cause Daniel Jones some problems.
Yeah.
And you sort of need Slayton or Shepard to find the end zone probably to have a good fantasy day, and I don't think it happens this week.
Yeah, Hollywood, don't like him at all this week either.
Nah, Jalen's going to have him shut down.
Yeah, there's always big play potential, but not a fan. Not a fan at all. And Deebo this week, I guess maybe depends on Kittle's health. I'm sure Sanders will play since he played last week. He's not 100% clearly. But against Green Bay, I'm okay with him. Green Bay is good statistically, but I don't know. They don't scare me.
Yeah, I'm okay there too. If there's a way to figure out who Jair Alexander's going to cover, that might help the decision. But Samuel and Sanders are sort of the same. Maybe it just means he'll shut down Kendrick Bourne. But
touchdown machine.
But the rest of that secondary isn't great.
Yeah, I agree with that one. That's sort of a weird.
But yeah, there's a lot of if Kittle and Sanders are active, probably sit Debo.
Yeah.
If Kittle's out, that definitely helps Debo. And if there are still indications that Sanders is hurting, that obviously helps Debo too.
Yeah, I'd agree. All right, tight end, big one. Falcons. This is our Jaden Graham, Luke Stalker. One of them's going to score, but there's no way of knowing which. Playing against Tampa, the worst defense against tight ends playing this week since Arizona's off. My boy Ryan Griffin playing Oakland. Ben Watson this week against Dallas. And Tyler Eifert against Pittsburgh. Those are the good matchups there, sort of the streamable good matchups. You just can't take a chance on either Falcon. As much as I am convinced one of them's going to score, it's just a complete
There's
shot in the
no
dark.
Indication. Jaden Graham does have good hair if you decide you want one.
He does. Now Ryan Griffin
Your boy.
Yeah, over 100 yards last week. Oh, by the way, this is tells you the state of my team. I picked up Ryan Griffin maybe 20 minutes before game started last week, just because I said, okay, this is my roster. I have Kelsey. He's going to be on bye. I need someone for next week. And so that's the only reason I picked him. I was never going to play him last week, of course.
Right.
He was my fan shop player of the week, highest scoring player of the week last week for my team.
Yeah, Matt's team's hit a little bit of a rough patch, everyone.
It's not good. It's not good, folks. So anyway, Ryan Griffin against Oakland, they've been one of the 5 worst defenses against tight ends all year. I wish he didn't have such a big game because I'm like, well, there's no way he has 2 monsters like that in a row. But I mean, he's almost a must start this week, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly a top 10 tight end this week. And
yeah.
You've got Kelsey on bye. You're definitely starting him. There isn't a better guy to pick up than him, I don't think. So, yeah.
I don't think so either because these other 2 guys like Watson, I mean, again, it's a Patriot. Who knows? Yep. Came out, had a couple catches early, finished with 52 yards. It was his best game of the year. But, I mean, we're still looking at 4 or 5 targets. We're not looking at anything major. And even though Dallas is terrible against tight ends, that's the reason we liked Hawkinson last week. He did absolutely nothing.
Right. I mean, Watson and Eifert, you're both just really hoping for a touchdown. It feels like Griffin could have 70 receiving yards and 4 or 5 catches and not score and still have a decent day. I don't think you see that with Watson or Eifert.
Right, exactly. Eifert, same thing against Pittsburgh. So the bad matchups, Noah Fant, who's sort of come on here with Brandon Allen against Buffalo. Jared Cook, who's also been playing well lately against Carolina. Jacob Hollister, pre-bye hero against Philadelphia. And Gerald Everett, the great disappearing Gerald Everett last week, who barely played against Baltimore. All these guys, well, maybe not Fant, but the other 3 guys are like, to me, Hollister's weird because I feel like Hollister got forgotten because of the bye.
Yep.
And if it wasn't for that, he would kind of be locked in as a starter for most people. But to me, these guys are starters, at least Cook and Everett. And I don't know if you should start any this week. And so now if you're taking these guys out of the equation, now, you are dipping into the Griffin, to the Watson, because there's already guys out.
Yeah, I agree.
And then Ingram and Hooper, injury, the buys. I feel like a lot of people are going to play Cook and Hollister and even Everett because they're like, who you want me to start? Benjamin Watson? Like, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm definitely locked and loaded on Hollister, all in on him.
Yeah, he gets targets. I think I don't want to say he's matchup proof, but it does feel like you can take swings.
It feels like Will Dissly is in his body and is just back.
Well, they line him up as like glorified H-back and just throw little dumps to him. Like, he's going to get catches.
Yeah, good little player. Where's number 48? Gotta love that. Fant definitely worries me. I don't think he was like a ton of people's starter like the past couple weeks anyways, and that Buffalo defense locks down tight ends. I don't think I would touch Fant unless you're in a really weird spot.
Because you got to remember, he had the 100-yard game 2 games ago. It was one play.
Yeah.
That's 75 yards.
I mean, you like to set the 11 targets last week, so maybe he'll get 12 since it's week 12 now, but
that's how it works usually.
Cook concerns me because we were all kind of excited about like he's involved and then he got 2 targets. He saved it with a touchdown. And it like definitely feels like one of those like Patriots light kind of, where like there would be games that he's really involved in, there would be games he's not, and this isn't a great game for him, so I would start Griffin over him. I don't think I would go to Watson or Eifert over him.
Yeah, it's tough to do. Now, Everett's the toughest one with the snaps he played and just what are they doing? And now the other receivers are back, and he was already up and down. Tough matchup.
I think you can look away from him. I still
Yeah.
do think he's probably ahead of Watson and Eifert, but
It's pretty close.
He's right there.
There's still upside for the future, but he's getting real dicey. And if you were like counting on him for the fantasy playoffs, you should definitely have another backup or just the streams ready to go.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to defenses. Not a ton well, it's funny. There actually are a lot of waiver wire opportunities, but their defenses you just don't want to pick up.
Yep.
So the Raiders at the Jets, the Falcons hosting the Bucks, the suddenly hot Falcons, I should say. The Redskins hosting the Lions at the Redskins, and the Broncos, which I don't think are actually that good of a play.
I agree.
But you go, well, it's the Broncos. They have a good defense, right? And then you go, Buffalo, Josh Allen turns it over, right? Neither of those things are really true. They haven't been true for really the Broncos defense hasn't been true almost all year. And Josh Allen is kind
turned the
of
ball over in like a month.
Yeah, he really, even longer than that.
Yeah.
So I really don't like them as a stream, even though at first blush they kind of, if this was in Denver, maybe a little more. But the Raiders, they've multiple turnovers, 3 straight games, 5 sacks each of the last 2 games. I think you can play them.
I think you can too. I don't know what got into Max Crosby last week, where he's just like, I'm going to get 4 sacks, but that was a good development for the rookie to help the defense.
And Darnold's going to throw picks.
It feels like a game where Darnold has a pretty good game and the Raiders have a pretty good fantasy defense day.
Which is how I feel about the Falcons too. Like Jameis will get his yards and probably touchdowns, but I think they'll get, all of a sudden they're sacking quarterbacks again, and we know Jameis will throw picks.
Yep.
Yeah,
and I feel good about Detroit too. That one I probably feel the best about, just
Detroit?
because I think Washington is terrible.
So again, similar type thing as Washington. I do agree, but they haven't really turned it over in 2 weeks. So you say, well, is that just kind of a fluke and they're coming?
It's a fluke and they're coming.
Because we saw Haskins.
Dwayne Haskins, man, he's given the ball to Detroit a couple of times.
Is he a guy who's so inaccurate that defenses can't even pick it off?
Like he misses by so much, it's just like out of bounds.
It's not like he's trying to thread the needle and it gets picked off. It's just
he just like bounces it. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I like Washington a little more, but Jeff Driscoll hasn't been that bad either. So it's sort of similar situation. I guess
Washington's actually okay.
That's sort of a home road thing for me, and I kind of like, the Redskins are at home, which I think will help. But yeah, I don't like the Lions as much just because they're not good. Like, they're really bad.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the Falcons were too until they weren't. So you never know. All right, the bad matchups, kind of real interesting. Patriots against Dallas, 49ers against Green Bay, Ravens against the Rams, and the Rams against Baltimore. I mean, Rams, Patriots, and 49ers are like 3 of the top 5 fantasy defenses. And at this point in the year, most people aren't going to not play them. But I actually think, God, it's tough because it's not a great week, but I don't really like them. At all.
Yeah, that's fair to not like them. I think I look at the Rams and I say, okay, that defense, you can see more flaws to where Lamar Jackson is going to probably light them up.
And just with that much running the Ravens do, how many chances for takeaways are there
or even sacks. You're not sacking Lamar. I probably, unless you've got a good matchup that isn't just one of these streams, you've got the Steelers and the Patriots or something ridiculous. You're probably playing the Patriots and the 49ers.
I just don't. Dallas gives up the fewest fantasy points.
I just So sometimes we view defenses a little bit differently. I think in the sense that to me, Patriots and 49ers, they're not going to blow up and ruin your week. Right. Maybe they get 5 points, but okay. It feels like if I play the Falcons defense and they happen to not turn Jameis Winston over, they could go negative, right?
Right.
And I don't really feel like the Patriots and Niners are going to do that. You're right that maybe the upside isn't there, but the Patriots have also made a couple good quarterbacks look pretty bad. You don't know.
Yeah, they made Roethlisberger look bad. Wentz, they didn't have a huge game last week, but you could live with it. They only allowed 10 points. To me, that's the path for them. It's 2 sacks, a takeaway, only allow 10 points.
Yeah.
That's whatever. It's kind of what you're saying. It's that was an 8 fantasy point day. I'd rather live with that than Jameis blowing up the Falcons.
It is really just has to do with how bad these stream options are as actual defenses, where it's man, can I
and what you need in your specific matchup.
Right. If you've got a
and the Patriots, 49ers, I guess, and the Rams too, they're all at home. 49ers and Rams are primetime games. Maybe that helps. Now the Ravens are really interesting. Man, they've been on fire lately. And I think it's legit. They've taken advantage of good matchups, don't get me wrong, for a couple of those, but I just think that Marcus Peters is this big play guy who will for fantasy purposes, like that's big to have that guy.
What to you is the worst part of this matchup for them? Are they worse against the run than I'm picturing? That we're worried about Todd Gurley?
I guess it's just the Rams they have the weapons to blow.
Yeah, I hear you. They've just been bad for 3 or 4 weeks in a row.
They haven't done that.
I would feel totally fine with the Ravens.
Yeah, I would too. I like them a little more than I thought I would. So, all right. That takes care of that. Are we missing anything?
Well, the biggest part of Week 12 is Monday Night Football's battle for kicker supremacy between Justin Tucker and Greg Zuerlein. So
last 2 Monday night games have been big kicker.
That's true. The kickers in Mexico, 2 good kickers, but now we've got the 2 best.
All right.
And I'm kind of hoping they just break down in the middle of the game and they just play horse and the kickers are trying to do cool stuff.
They're definitely exchanging jerseys after the game, right?
Oh, 1,000,000%. Stone cold lock of the week.
So I've heard Justin Tucker does not like other kickers and they don't like him.
I have heard things about Tucker, yeah.
So I wonder maybe if he's like, why would I exchange jerseys with him? And he's like, I'm going to exchange jersey with Aaron Donald. Only the best exchange with the best.
Yeah, it could be. And they're 9-99, so that would actually be pretty good. The 9-4 doesn't work quite as well. But
you never know.
There was a video of Zuerlein last week where he's walking down the sideline after kicking, and Hecker was trying to throw the hat and have it land on his head.
Right.
And he got it to land sort of on the upper back part of his head. It landed, not quite, but that's probably a good omen for Greg Zuerlein too. So
it might be.
So really. The real question is my Showdown Monday night lineup going to 2 weeks in a row have 2 kickers?
Yeah.
And I don't think it will this week, but hey, we'll have to see the pricing.
We'll have to see.
But that'd be quite the development in sporting news.
That's what the people want to see. All right.
Somebody got really mad at me that I made Michael Badgley my captain. He was like, the Chiefs defense is so bad. How can you not use Melvin Gordon? I was like, well, Melvin Gordon's in my lineup, but he's kind of expensive.
Right. Yeah.
And
it's 1.5 times.
And actually, Badgley had a good game.
He did.
So
they were settling.
The premise was all right.
And if only Philly hadn't thrown so many picks, he could have done even more.
Good old Philly.
There it is. Week 12. Gosh, next week's going to be a big week. You know that?
Next week will be huge. It will legitimately be fair for you to start the podcast by saying big week.
Yeah.
For the 13th week in a row.
I don't know if we're going to do one next week because it's Thanksgiving and there's going to be a lot of people. I don't know if the people we need to be around are going to be around next week.
We could probably make this happen by ourselves if we really had to.
I'm sure we could, but I don't know if I have that much energy and effort. I'm going to be licking my wounds anyway.
The people need the podcast.
From 6-2 to 6-6 and, on the verge of missing the playoffs. I'm going to be.
Ryan Griffin's going to lead you to a win this week. I feel good about it.
God willing, man. God willing. I need it. I don't have much going for me in my life, so I really need it. Anyway.
Well, on that note, hope everyone else is having a good day.
If we aren't here, have a happy Thanksgiving. For Billy Hay and I am Matt Latowski. Thanks for listening, and until next time.